call this meeting to order. In accordance with Virginia Beach City Code 2-1 and by the authority vested in me as mayor of the city of Virginia Beach, I hereby call for a special formal session in the Virginia Beach City Council on Tuesday, February 10th, 2026 at 2 p.m. City Council Conference Room 2034, Building 1, second floor, 2401 Courthouse Drive. The purpose of the special formal session is allow City Council, following its regularly scheduled formal session as listed in the agenda, to convene a closed session to discuss the following matters: publicly held property in District 6, public contract, project grant, personnel matters, city council appointments, boards, commissions, committees, authorities, agencies, task force, and appointees. And at the conclusion of the closed session, the city council will reconvene into an open session for the purpose of certifying the closed session. The special formal session will be broadcast on cable TV, virginiabeach.com, and Facebook Live. Sincerely, Bobby Dyer. Okay. Welcome one, welcome all. Mr. Duhaney, let's go ahead and get started.
All right, so Mr. Mayor, members of council, the first briefing will be given by our Legislative Affairs Director, Brett McKenzie, who's joining us live from Richmond. He's going to give us an overview of all the General Assembly's comings and goings. Brett, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Mr. City Manager, and good afternoon, Mr. Mayor, members of council. So we're entering our fourth week here in the General Assembly. Today, like a few of the other briefings, we're just going to provide a brief status update on our legislative agenda items. And today we're going to mention some of the items that have fiscal impacts, give you an update on some land use legislation that we've seen some action on over the last week, mostly in a positive manner, and some legislation that has some revenue streams attached to them. So with that, we'll kind of get started here. Just as a quick update or reminder, some upcoming milestones. So next week, February 18th, is crossover. That's the day that each chamber has to complete all of their work on their legislation, and then whatever passes goes over to the other chamber. On February 22nd, each chamber will present their budgets, and they have until February 26th to complete their individual budgets. And then the session scheduled to end on March 14th, and then we have reconvened session on April 22nd. You guys likely saw in the news, I think it was on Friday, Governor Spanberger signed into law 4 constitutional amendments that will be on the ballot this year. 3 of these will be on the ballot in November. One dealing with reproductive freedom, one dealing with voting rights restoration, and one dealing with marriage equality. The 4th one is scheduled to be a special election on April 21st, dealing with congressional redistricting. If you're following the news at all, you've probably seen a lot of information and news about this. There's a lot of litigation tied up in this. It's at the Virginia Supreme Court now. So they are moving forward with scheduling that election and putting all of the procedural requirements in place as the court action plays out. So our legislative agenda, the things here in bold are the things that are still active. Just a couple of things that have moved since my last briefing. Our EMS funding bill, HB 57 from Delegate Fagans, passed the House and has been referred to the Senate Transportation Committee, so that's great progress. HB 390 from Delegate Askew, dealing with some of those permitting issues that we're having, is on third read today, so should pass the House today and move over to the Senate. And then the Menhaden fishing study, they had divided the bill into two separate bills. One dealing with some of the restrictions they wanted to put on the Menhaden fishery, one dealing with the study. They've combined certain portions of that, but the study part of it is moving forward as HB 1049. That passed committee yesterday, so that was exciting news. And then unfortunately, this past Friday, our pop-up event zone legislation was unfortunately not successful in the House County, Cities, and Towns Committee. So all of the legislation on this screen here, these are things that are, have a fiscal impact to local government. Nothing on here. You've seen everything that's on here before. We just want to continue to highlight these things for you. The House version of the collective bargaining legislation is scheduled to be heard in the full Labor and Commerce Committee this afternoon, and then we'll get sent over to appropriations. I guess the one real common theme, as you'll see through the rest of this presentation, is that most of the real heavy legislation is through its original committee and has been sent to the money committees. These are the places where most of these decisions get made in the money committees, because they have to not only agree with the policy, but they also have to fund many of these things. And so you'll see that on most of the status updates on most of these pieces of legislation is that they're sitting in finance and in appropriations. So that's collective bargaining. The sovereign immunity legislation from the Senate Majority Leader Scott Surreville. Its initial iteration was pretty ambiguous, and we had a lot of questions with what its intent was. From our reading of it, we believe that it only impacted a very small segment of local government employees. The Senate Majority Leader cleared all of that up by dropping a substitute bill in the Courts Committee earlier this week, or I guess it was last week, to where it would cover basically all local government employees and local government actions, looking at the fiscal impact of that, working with the city attorney's office and our budget folks. We think it would probably double or triple some of our insurance requirements, probably with a fiscal impact of somewhere between $5 and $6 million. And that is, before there's any sort of lawsuits or anything that may be come with it result from that sovereign immunity going away. So we're continuing to watch that legislation very closely, and we're lobbying against that change. You'll remember from my first briefing, there was a piece of legislation that would require local governing bodies to fund the school budgets of need, regardless of what that budget of need came over and asked for. That legislation was rejected in the Appropriations Subcommittee. And then I'll highlight one more here for you guys. We talked a little bit about this last week, but I think it's worth talking about again. There was legislation introduced by Senator Rouse and Delegate Fagans that would require all public works projects to operate under prevailing wage Davis-Bacon rules, just like a lot of our federal projects do. There's a lot of complications with that, from just reporting and paperwork and the added cost, obviously, right? Senator Rouse amended his bill to only apply to state projects, not to local projects. And there's a lot of folks working with Delegate Fagans to get those same amendments made to his legislation. So on land use legislation, last week I think I came to you and I had a lot of bad news on land use legislation, and I was personally pretty dejected on a lot of this. Over the last week, we've seen a lot of progress in making some of these pieces of legislation much more palatable and better for us and for local governments across the Commonwealth. And so SB 454 from Senator Van Valkenburg and HB 816 from Delegate Dan Helmer. This is a piece of legislation that would require every local government or every locality to designate 75% of all of their zoning or districts that are zoned for business to allow by right family, multifamily housing to be built on those zoning districts. That was a terrible description, but hopefully I think you got it. We were able to get a carve out for our Oceana and AQ's issues in there. And local governments have been working with Senator Van Valkenburg. He's been very generous in taking some additional amendments under consideration as we try to make that legislation more workable for local governments. With the success of that bill, Senator Van Valkenburg agreed to have his SB 488 stricken from the docket. He was really hoping for one or the other would pass this year. And so by working with us on the 75% bill, he has stricken his housing targets bill. We're optimistic that the House version of that will see the same fate when it comes over to the Senate after crossover. And then I'll highlight one more here for you, I guess two more actually. SB 531 deals with accessory dwelling units. And so the House version of that bill was defeated in the House committee. It was a complete mandate on localities that you would have to allow any property in a single family residential zoning district to allow them to do an ADU. Obviously, we're historically against those sort of mandates. After the senator saw that fate in the House, he went back and kind of reworked his bill to try to make it a little more permissible and more workable for local governments. We think he's maybe halfway there. We've got a little bit more work to do on that, but again, lots of positive progress there. And then similarly, the faith and housing legislation that I mentioned to you guys before, that would basically give any church-owned property and any nonprofit-owned property the right to build multifamily housing on it. The original version of that bill had almost no restrictions on it. The newest version of it has some restrictions on it, and our housing folks and planning folks are taking a look at that now and providing me some advice and guidance on where we might be able to go with that. And then I guess I might as well just mention the last bill on the list since I talked about the others. There was originally legislation that would have eliminated the ability for local governments to enforce any sort of parking minimums. This version, HB 888 from Delegate Shin of Northern Virginia, is a bit of a compromise where it restricts the ability for local governments to set parking limits for properties that are near transit stations and near like kind of small area plans, things like town center, places like that, that are meant to be more urban and less suburban. So again, the first version we didn't like, the newest version we don't love, but is market improvement from where we started. So lots of positive movement on land use legislation this week. And then here, similar to the bills that have a fiscal impact, some of the legislation that would provide some new revenue streams for local governments, all of these are currently in the Finance and Appropriations Committee. Things like skill games are both in there, are both in the money committees. Retail marijuana marketplace. There's currently 2 versions in the Senate, 1 version in the House. The version from Senator Aird and Delegate Krizek would give local governments the authority to institute a sales tax, and you'd have the choice between 1% and 3.5%, and that would be on top of the already existing 1%. The version from Delegate Lucas, Senate Bill 826, mandates and requires a 3% sales tax, and in my reading of it, it's absent talking about if that's 3% on top of the 1% or not. So they still have some things they need to work out on those fronts. We talked a little bit last week about the legislation that would give local governments the authority to call for a referendum for a 1% sales tax increase to pay for school construction. The House version of that bill has made it all the way through the House on a 70-28 bipartisan vote and is now headed over to the Senate. There's 2 versions in the Senate from Senator McPike and Senator Lucas that they're still working out some of the details on dealing with some of the bonding authority and the ability to kind of supplant some of the payments there. And then the last bill here that I'll highlight for you is on vaping products. The Senate version ran into some of the same complications we've had in the past on this bill, and the House version is sitting in House Appropriations and hasn't been docketed for a committee hearing yet. With that, Mr. Mayor, I'm going to turn it back over to you for any questions. You know, it's the week before crossover. There will be a ton of action happening this week. Next week, we probably will be waiting still for a lot of this action to take place prior to crossover. And then after crossover, we'll have a better grasp of how this session is going to look for us.
Okay, let me start it off. You should be all gotten a copy of the letter that I forwarded to the delegates and senators, with regard to the collective bargaining. And let me just give everybody an assurance that the 757 mayors, we appreciate the value of collective bargaining. But basically, we just wanted, to have a say in it. And so what I did was send forward something given the potential of some pretty negative stuff that they experienced in Fairfax County, to do a study, to defer it until they can do a financial impact about how it would affect the localities. And you should all have a copy of that going forward. And, Brent, thank you for your help in crafting that. And, let's see what happens. Okay.
Yes, sir.
Amelia?
Thank you again, Brent, for all you're doing up there. So it's the second time when I went up. But one interesting one where you have Faith in Housing with Mike Pike. Go
Yes,
back
ma'am.
to there. The VML, we were calling it Why, like yes, in God's backyard. All of you know the other NIMBY, but this is what we're calling it, yes, in God's backyard. And I thought that was interesting, because many people are looking at, something like that to address the housing. And I looked at it, and we already, as a city, have started doing some of that. So for many, it was new, but they were pushing that forward. And there was the other that you mentioned about the schools, construction. You could go back to that one?
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah.
And I think, you bring up what the argument that we make as local governments is that, we have the authority already to work with religious organizations, nonprofits, really anybody that wants to build housing, that to come and work with the city to move projects like that forward. These sort of pieces of legislation that, just grant these small pockets of people with special authority and without really, especially in the original version, without any sort of restrictions on it, they raise a lot of concerns for us as a local government and local governments across the Commonwealth. I think you're right that we already have a lot of that authority and we can work with folks, and I think we do. And that's what we kind of been talking to the legislators about. But the new version's better, probably not great, but we'll see what our planning folks say. They're the experts on it. They'll help me out with that. And then, I think I've mentioned this local sales tax for school construction in most of my briefings so far this year. It's passed the legislature 2 years in a row and was vetoed by Governor Youngkin. Governor Spanberger has said she will sign it. So, I think the expectation is that this new authority will be coming to local governments this year. Nothing's ever guaranteed. Crazy things happen, but that's certainly the expectation at this point.
Thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
Josh?
Mr. Mayor, Brent, thank you again. And just to chime in, Councilwoman Ross Hammond's, just points about housing. And just over the last 2 years, as we've all been sitting here, at least I have, we've seen these legislative updates. And a lot of times, I know our preference, and for good reason, is to really resist a lot of what some of the General Assembly tries to push from the top down on us, because, especially in land use, this localities are like where the rubber meets the road for real, and we've got to listen to our constituents and our friends and neighbors, and land use issues are understandably, can be controversial just because that's everybody's primary investment and source of wealth. But I hope that we can look at some of these issues, and even if our posture is, not necessarily in alignment with where the legislature wants to go, these can be conversations as we move about, with our zoning ordinance update. ADUs, for example, I think ought to be a topic for conversation to help people get a little bit more comfort around what that means and what it doesn't mean for our neighborhoods. And instead of mandates, how about some freedom to create some incentives to include housing and mixed use and redevelopment opportunities, especially in our aging commercial districts. So I would be looking at that General Assembly as, for ways to help us unlock opportunities as opposed to from the top down require us to do things that put us in difficult positions. And lastly, I'm happy to hear that the Menhaden study ended up coming out. I know that's important for all of us, but especially those of us along the Bayfront. So thank you, Brent.
Yes, sir. Thank you.
Anybody else at this point? Brent, we can't wait to welcome you home.
I appreciate that, Mr. Mayor. Thank you.
All right, appreciate it. Okay, moving on.
All right, so Mr. Mayor, members of council, the next proposal is an opportunity we want to bring forward to the council about transferring the First Tee site to Southampton, to YMCA of Southampton Roads. We got a presentation that will provide council a list of options, and we look forward to council discussion and possible direction following the briefing.
Hey, welcome, Amanda.
Good afternoon, Mayor Dyer, Vice Mayor Wilson, members of City Council, Manager Duhaney, and City Attorney Harmeyer. As the manager mentioned, I'm here today to talk about a potential First Tee land donation to the YMCA of Southampton Roads. And the clicker is not working. Here we go. I think I got it now. Here we go. So as I mentioned, I'll provide an overview of options for a potential long-term lease or land donation to the YMCA of Southampton Roads in support of the First Tee program, and we'll seek your direction on next steps. Just to provide you an overview of the services they provide, the YMCA of Southampton Roads operates First Tee in an effort to teach youth the game of golf, life lessons, and leadership skills. The property is approximately 80 acres. It includes a 9-hole junior golf campus, clubhouse, and a driving range. They provide a variety of services to include golf classes as well as camps. The property is located in an agriculturally zoned district and is within the ITA overlay, which falls in District 2. They have over 1,100 members that participate in the programs every year, and they've experienced 400% growth in the past 3 years. So the City of Virginia Beach owns the property and leases that property to the Virginia Beach Development Authority. The Virginia Beach Development Authority in turn subleases this property to the YMCA of Southampton Roads. The initial sublease was executed in 1997, and that was for a 5-year term with 6 5-year renewals at the YMCA's option. So the current sublease term is through 2037. So as you all are aware, based on council's direction, we did issue an RFP for Virginia Beach National. That RFP, important to note, did include that the lease for the First Tee property would remain in effect despite any potential sale or lease of VB National. We have received 9 responses to that RFP. The review committee convened, and there was a closed session briefing to council earlier this year. So the YMCA has requested either a long-term extension of the lease or to take title of the property so they can continue to invest the program and make necessary capital expenditures into the program and property. The First Tee campus can be subdivided into its own parcel based on feedback and discussion with our planning department. An extension of the lease or property transfer, as I mentioned, will allow the YMCA of Southampton Roads to continue to invest in this incredibly valuable program for our community. And so we're here today to seek your direction. There are a number of avenues available to you. So first, we could renew and extend the existing lease beyond the 2037 timeframe. The VBDA, the Virginia Beach Development Authority, does have the ability to enter into very long-term leases. They don't have the limits that are placed on city council for terms of leases, or we could transfer or sell the property to the YMCA with a reversion clause should that use change. We could take no action and keep their current lease in place, which, as I mentioned, does go through 2037, and then obviously any other direction that you may provide. I'm happy to take any questions.
Okay, Rosemary.
And always well done. There sure has been a lot of discussion about VB National and the First Tee. And I think in everything we ever said, we wanted to make sure that First Tee was held harmless. That their mission was very important to us, and we wanted to make sure that that was maintained. And I would like to make a recommendation that we, I guess either you sell it for $1 or you gift it to them. And this is why. First of all, it kind of gets it off our plate. And it also sets the stage that we really want them to be on their own. And they have told us that they can be self-sustaining. The Y and the First Tee Board have told us that they can be self-sustaining and they can do it on their own. But most importantly is some wonderful group of volunteers that are doing this. And they would like to go out and fundraise and improve what they have. I mean, they do some really wonderful things. Councilman Bellucci and I went out there and we did the golf course tour and the golf cart tour. And they have a lot of ideas and plans of things that they would like to do to improve it, but they can't do it for property that they lease. If they own it, then they could be able to make to raise money to do all these different ideas that they have. And that would have to have a reverter clause that anytime that mission changes, it comes back to us. I mean, they can't take it and sell it and do anything like that. As long as it's the First Tee and they keep that mission, I think they should own it themselves. So I hope the council will support that, but the Y Board and the First Tee Board would really like to see this happen as well. So thank you.
And Michael and Moore.
I think Worth was before me, so I'll okay. Well, I agree with the Vice Mayor. I agree with what she said, and that would be my request as well. First Tee is an extraordinary and remarkable city partner who is engaged in youth development, which we know is an essential component of our quality of life in Virginia Beach, and it's a priority for the council. And they also provide golf access and introduction to the sport, which is increasingly popular and increasingly diversifying to traditional audiences, but also to underserved audiences and emerging audiences. And I think that's very exciting. They're a known entity, proven partner. And I think that I was talking to someone who said, you know, sometimes when there's an easy button, you press the easy button. And in my view, this is an easy button. It's an investment, it's a public investment into the extraordinary work that's happening there. And it will allow them to leverage that investment, which is already effectively present, and make enhancements to not only their facilities and to the course and range that's there and putting green, but also to, and I think most importantly, to their operations and to the programs they offer. And that's what they've said that they would do. I don't speak for them, but my understanding, having spoken to the folks from the YMCA and also from the First Tee Board, is that they would prefer that the land be dedicated, but it's also risk-free for the city because of the reverter clause, so that if there's not another use, I mean, if another use sometime in the future is contemplated, then it would revert to the city, so they couldn't flip it and sell it for another use. So it's a long-term investment into what I think has become an essential community and civic partner, and I think it's the right move for us to make. And as someone wisely stated, I think it's the easy button.
Worth.
Thank you. Mayor Dyer, thank you, Ms. Chair, for the presentation. And I also agree with what's been said about the transfer with these two questions or comments, and then really for the city attorney, Mr. Harmeyer, or the city manager. Currently, there's no real estate taxes assessed or collected on this property because it's a nonprofit. And then going forward, if it's a sale, that would remain the same.
Typically, a leasehold would be subject to real estate taxes unless the leasehold is held by another nonprofit that has a tax exemption. So it is exempt presently.
And I think that's what we intend. I just want to make sure. And then secondly, I agree totally with the provision that the reversion clause, I guess that's in the form of a deed restriction, but that's ironclad. That's a legally enforceable document. It's a public has questions about that. And I would certainly endorse this with all those, because I did also do a golf cart tour. This is my kind of course. It's all par 3. It's, get it done in an hour or so, an hour and a half short. And but they teach not just a game of golf, but lifelong lessons, values, and it's a great organization. I fully endorse this.
Stacy?
Thank you. There has been a great outcrying of support for First Tee, and been able to learn a little bit about the organization through that. It's an incredible benefit to the community. I fully support letting them have their own self-determination. But I would just want to say that there are some shared facilities that we need to be aware of, that we need to make sure that there are no unintended consequences from, having the city being able to use the VB National the way that we would like it to be used. And there are also some encroachments, I guess, based upon where the current lease is. So just those things need to be worked out. So it's nice and clean, and that the city's hands are not going to be tied by doing a good thing and relinquishing control down the road, that we would say, oh, wow, we didn't think about that and wish we would have thought of that. And so that we need to have the flexibility that we're doing a good thing for them, but we don't want to be held up moving forward.
Absolutely. Councilmember Cummings, preliminary conversations regarding the shared services have occurred, and we're confident that that can be resolved, and we'll certainly take any encroachment into consideration.
Hey, Josh?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I fully concur. I think this is a great signal to the community that we met what we said we did in the RFP, that we were going to hold them harmless. And just me personally, I grew up single mom. My grandfather was a scratch golfer, and we lived nearby a golf course. And he said, Josh, you should get a job caddying there someday. And I said, okay, Grandpa. And then he passed away. I got a job caddying, and golf taught me just so much, especially being a young kid, not growing up with much. And it taught me how to kind of think in my own head, taught me how to respect nature. It teaches you how to deal with other professionals and communicate at a different level than I was used to at my age. And golf is one of the only games that you play against yourself. And it's one of the only games you can spend your whole life trying to be reasonably good at and still come short, although the couple of moments here and there are always nice. So what this does for young people and how it helps elevate who they think they can be and who they know they should be. I think it's a wonderful mission, and it's a great statement by this council to put the money where our mouth is, so to speak. So.
Okay, anybody else at this point? Amelia?
Yes. Ma'am, can you go back? You said something, I just want to make sure. You said that whatever happens to the VB National, they're also comfortable with this, yes, no?
So with regards to the shared services,
Yeah.
we have had preliminary discussions with them, and we're confident that that can be resolved, and we'll take any encroachments into consideration. And as always, as was outlined in the RFP, VB National, First Tees lease or any transfers to be held harmless by whatever decision the council may make related to VB National. But should we pursue with a transfer or sale of this property to First Tee, then that would remove that from being any conflict related to VB National.
Thank you, I'm on board.
Okay, at this forward, I think it's prudent to go ahead and go forward. Once again, Stacy brought up a couple little things that need to be addressed, but I am confident that they can be addressed. So unless anybody objects, let's go forward and get it done.
Great, thank you.
Oh, we'll help you, Claire.
I'm happy for First Tee.
Okay, at this point, any council discussions at all? Michael?
Thank you, Mayor. One thing that I wanted to bring up is a report from our Cannabis Advisory Task Force who met yesterday. And I know we received a legislative update that included some updates about cannabis, but I just wanted to bring to the public's attention and also to this council's attention some of the changes that are imminent and where local influence is expected to occur in these changes. There are two areas where it appears that local influence will be prioritized, and that is in zoning decisions as it relates to the manufacture, processing, and retail sales of cannabis products. And it's anticipated by members of our task force and also folks from Virginia Beach who are involved in these discussions at the statewide level, that there will be local authority conveyed in terms of zoning. So to put a finer point on it, would the distribution, would the sales occur in which types of business districts or industrial? Would agricultural occur, for example, by right, or with the permit? Would the sales require a conditional permit? These are things we're going to have to figure out. And then there's also the question about the tax rate. I think it's variable from 1% to 3.5% locally taxed, and the locality makes those decisions. Working from the expectation, as they've shared, and these are experts who are engaged in this on a daily basis, that retail sales would begin in Virginia on January 1st, could begin in Virginia on January 1st of 2027. And then manufacture would begin long before that. I'm happy, once again, to share that we have a cannabis advisory task force that's actively working and engaged in these things and providing recommendations. But I also think it's really, and I'm grateful to them. At the same time, I want to just bring to the council and to Mr. Duhaney's attention, city attorney's attention, that we've got to get to work on this and we've got to do some public engagement. It's going to be our community's decision about how they envision these, and I know that people are going to have not only different opinions, but we don't want to catch anyone off guard. The next thing you know, there's a dispensary in their neighborhood that they weren't anticipating. And there's lots of restrictions. There's a broad regulatory environment expected, but we've got to get on it. And I don't know, and I know we got a great briefing from planning yesterday, and I know that they're being very thoughtful about this. Our police department, it appears is in a wait and see. They're very interested in what this is going to look like, because they're going to have to be tasked with enforcement on a lot of these things. But we've got a lot of work to do. But more than that, what I'm thinking about is we have public feedback that we need to receive, and before we can even really do that work. So I don't know what that looks like, but we got a briefing from the task force, and they gave us a heads up, but it's coming, and it's coming fast. So anyway, I welcome if you have any thoughts about it, or happy to talk about it in another time. But I think we really need to understand as a community, where is the local control, and then what decisions are we going to make about that?
Okay, Rosemary and Amelia, and then Worth, Stacy, and Barbara.
I'm really glad that Councilman Bellucci brought this to our attention, and he and I spoke about it earlier today, and I said, this kind of reminds me, and Bob, you may relate to this, to the tanning salons, I mean, not tanning salons, the tattoo parlors. When we were allowing any tattoo parlors throughout our city, and then it came to a point that we didn't have a choice anymore. And this is going to be something we don't have a choice anymore. And so I think we did a lot of things to put in restrictions. We didn't have it down in the resort. We don't have them down in the resort. You don't have them near a school. You don't have them near a lot of different things. And so taking some of that in mind, we may want to look at those kind of things for this, but also let's look at best practices maybe across the country with what they're doing that might relate to what our values are and how we would like to go forward with something like this. And so we don't have a lot of time, but we do have a little time. And I think Michael's right, we really need to get in front of this. So I'd like to see what we're doing what people are doing across the country, but also what will work well for us.
Hey, Amelia?
Yes, just to,
Good thing it didn't spill.
on what Michael just mentioned. I attended the VML conference as one of the executive board, and we were up there 2 days talking and working with people. And one of the things that we were working on is cannabis retail sales, local referendum, land use, and we mentioned that VML urges the General Assembly to authorize local governments, cities, towns, and counties to regulate land use and zoning, hold a referendum on retail sales, and tax recreational cannabis retailers. They also support the statewide authority for local government to establish an excise tax on the sale of vaping products. We also support the statewide authority for local governments to establish an excise tax on the sales of cannabis products. So that is also important at the VML. Other areas, we visited different people. I'll just name off a few of our priorities: local land use, local revenue resources, support for public education, assistance to local police departments, authority for retired law enforcement to handle temporary detention orders, compensation for wrongful incarceration, deed fraud, housing tools for local communities. In fact, who spoke to us at our reception was Senator Mark Warner, and he talked about the same situation to do with housing. But he mentioned a new kind. Instead of just affordable, attainable, he brought up manufactured housing. So afterwards, I talked with him briefly, what's the big difference? Well, seemingly now they're looking at building this house like how they have the acoustical steel area, putting it all together, picking it up and delivering it to the land. So that was an interesting thing. It reminded me of prefab housing, but it's not called that, it's now called manufactured housing. And then the last two things, state mandated tax policy changes, stormwater local assistance funding, and study of mandatory property tax exemptions and changing. This is very important, and I pray that our council members come up there. We need one of you up there. The incoming president is Curtis Bethany from City of Newport News. So they are there. And it doesn't look so good if just one Virginia Beach person is there, because we can also vie for what's going on as we're going around and visiting the different senators and delegates. So I please implore you all. Councilwoman Rosemary was the first one that told me about this in 2012, and I said, well, let me go and learn about it. And gradually I've risen up to be on the executive board. So they need to hear from us because we are the largest city. And then on another thing, I hope I brought enough, but as you know, yesterday was Transit Diversity Day, where they had free bus, trolleys, rails that you could ride. And up there, they gave us little buttons. So I always, this is from my mom, when she goes to something, she used to always bring something back about the conference. So we have little buttons, keep transit affordable, and some others, fund our trains, fund our buses. So we have a few that will pass over. Oh, Michael. And finally, we had a really nice event, even though it was under 30 degrees. We did the neighborhood signs program, and we had a good group turnout, and we changed it around a little bit. We think Emily was there, and Gina, we asked Drew, he was also helpful, but the whole group, we got out there, we did it at Michael's Lita, and we left and went out. Because it was so cold, we were supposed to stand around, you know, and then unveil. But we switched it, we did all the program inside, then went out, the mayor was there, did a lovely speech. The council member, the Honorable Worth Remick, they were so happy to see him. And we also had Sheriff who came and his wife and little one, and he also donated the hot chocolate and Virginia African American Culture Center. Each of these, we provide the refreshments. So everyone enjoyed themselves. All the 4 ministers in that area came out, and they're really proud that the mayor and our council continue to support this. This is our 5th one, and we still have 2 more to go. And we pray the weather be better.
Well done,
Thank you.
well done.
Okay.
Good stuff. All right, we got Worth, Stacy, and Barker.
Thank you, Mayor. Just 3 things. This Saturday, a group of sponsors, including Virginia VB 250, sponsoring the 245th commemoration or anniversary of the skirmish at James Plantation, 11 o'clock at Nimmo Church. It's a great program. This skirmish did not happen at the church. It happened right down the street right where Target is right now at Red Mill Commons. But great program this Saturday, 11 o'clock. Tomorrow night, February 11th, at VB Middle School, I'll have my 12th community meeting at 6:30, VB Middle School, 6:30 it starts promptly. Doors will open at 6. We have a presentation from Virginia Beach City Public Schools on how our schools are preparing our students for the workforce. And then Kathy Warren is going to present on the current status of the comprehensive land use plan. And then we'll have some other questions and comments. And then thirdly and lastly, I was honored last Sunday, 2 days ago, to be at the SeaTac sign dedication, recognizing and honoring that historic great community. So thank you, Councilwoman Ross Hammond, for your leadership on that, as well as the staff for putting that together. It was well received, and thank you for that.
Stacy?
The Virginia Sports Hall of Fame started off, I don't know if it started off, but for quite a while had a building in Portsmouth, a really nice building. And over the years, they've accumulated quite a bit of stuff, some really nice memorabilia. And for the last several years, this memorabilia has been displayed throughout town center, in different offices and lobbies. They are now going through a transition, and it's going to require them to remove these displays from where they are in town center. And they were going to put them into storage. And when I heard of that, I thought, you know, we got this convention center and we have the sports center, big open spaces. I thought that would be a nice place to display some of this stuff. And, you know, no cost to the city. They'll do everything that would be required. And I think it'd be a nice display some of the stuff is really, a lot of it, it's all nice. You know, but to have that in the lobby of the convention center, which right now is just basically kind of open, empty, it would give people a reason to go in there or something to do while they're waiting to go to their event. And I don't know that I see a downside to it, but I throw it up.
Can I ask you a question?
Sure.
Why do they want to take it out of the town center?
They're required to. Their lease is expired at town center and they're in transition.
Okay, Josh, and then.
Just, that's a really neat idea. And I'm happy to, maybe we can investigate a little bit further the town center situation, but, you know, it just strikes me that we've got also public sports use facilities down in the Princess Anne Commons area, you know, and I'm sure we have soccer and field hockey, you know, Hall of Famers and other types of sports folks that we can celebrate. Maybe there's room there too.
Okay, Cash, did you have something on this?
I did. Yeah, Bruce Rader who's the new chair, has been trying to reach out to council to get us to really show that we are in line with sports tourism, right? And so Town Center is gone. That's a thing that is gone.
Wait a minute, what do you mean it's gone?
Well, the lease is up.
Not
Yeah.
Town Center.
No,
I
no,
just want to make sure.
correct.
Thank you.
But our identity is sports tourism. And I think there was an email that Joe Rubin sent to several council members telling us and reminding us our identity, right? Meaning sports tourism. And that's what this is really about. It moving to Enrico sends a message to us that we've got talent here, we've got celebrities here, and I know we care. We are a council that cares about sports tourism. I just think somehow the message has been diluted or not picked up correctly. But here it is. I think, Stacy, you bringing it to the table shows that we are for sports tourism as well as the Virginia Sports Hall of Fame.
I get, Amelia?
Just wanted to ask, you said Bruce is now the chair? Because as you know, the original person is now with HealthNet or NetHealth.
He's not the original person, he was the last person.
He was the last one, but I was here when they brought it from Portsmouth and asked us to help out. And we did. And that's when we divided it all over the place. And now the young man at LifeNet, he was great. So now that he's gone, suddenly I had a feeling things will become rocky because, he really had that. So if we can still save that, I mean, they're beautiful, the jerseys and everything. The idea of having it somewhere in our city, that's the largest city. Usually they have a special event and bring in Virginia's top. And it's usually a really nice event.
Yeah.
So I'm glad you brought that.
Okay, Stacy, and then Mark.
Yeah, I was just gonna say that I think maybe might have it inverse, because you said that since Will's been gone,
Yes.
that it's been shaky, and I think it was shaky for a while. And now with, and for a lot of reasons, but I'm not pointing fingers at anyone, I'm just saying that Bruce Rader coming in as the executive director has added a great sense of stability, and they've got some financial footing behind them. But it doesn't matter because they're not asking for anything. They're just looking for a place to store the stuff. And if it's, no cost to us.
Bring it up.
Yeah.
That's good. Mark, are you going to talk about this?
Yes, just to clarify from what I believe in that email from Joel, so we haven't necessarily lost it to Enrico. I think it's for 2 years that they'll have the annual induction ceremony, and we may have competed for that, and maybe Enrico presented a better financial package, but the location of the Sports Hall of Fame really is not any one particular building, city, or other. I think this is what we lost to Enrico was the induction ceremony, and not the. But I do think whether it's a town center or the convention center, I think we should talk about it and find a location in the city and not put it in storage for sure.
Okay.
We should be a sports city.
Okay, Barbara?
Just sports tourism in general, not this particular.
Okay, are we finished on this one? Yeah.
Just to wrap up, Enrico, we probably need to do some studying on this because they are preparing to house the Virginia Sports Hall of Fame. They are rolling out the red carpet with Bruce and telling him that they're going to have freeway signs and some others. So they're not just thinking of 2 years. And so this is what the letter in the email was sent to us, was trying to get our attention and saying Enrico is not just preparing for 2 years, they're preparing.
Okay, Stacy?
Yeah, I think we're getting off the road a little bit here, whether there is no, as Worth said, there is no physical home to the Sports Hall of Fame. It's a Virginia organization. Enrico's offered to sponsor it for a couple-year commitment, but I don't want to get lost in the weeds and that part of it. It's just that this is a good place to store the stuff.
Yeah, but let me ask you this, isn't it stored at different locations? There's not a
As we-
presence, there's some, where we have economic development, there's some in the
Yes.
Mata Hoffler building and things like
Yes,
that.
so bringing it all together at the convention center and the sports center would give people a reason to come.
Okay, Patrick.
Mr. Mayor, members of council, I think I'm picking up what you guys are asking for. We'll reach out to them and see if we can possibly, at free, hopefully, find a way to host them in our locations. We do know that they currently provide a trophy case inside the sports center as well. So there's already a relationship. So we'll see if it makes sense to kind of incorporate them within some of our spaces.
Okay, we'll see what we can shake down. Barbara.
I just had something about the sports
Go for it.
district. Okay. I did the required sending council members an email indicating that I was asking the city attorney's office to develop a resolution to establish a Virginia Beach Sports District. And so I have copies for you all of this proposed resolution. And some of you have already told me you would like to be sponsors of this as well. Please let me know if you would. But this would establish the Virginia Beach Sports District and authorize the city manager to take actions in support thereof. And they have attached a nice map to show just what the sports district is. And I think moving forward with this at this time is certainly apropos from what we've been talking about. That we officially name this area the Virginia Beach Sports District, and they can use this in their branding going forward. The folks out there have been very active in wanting to do this, particularly Chuck Thornton has been pushing this, and so he's probably talked with a lot of you about it.
Yes.
Mayor, just really quick, I think that, thank you, Councilwoman Henley. I really think, and my initiatives have been sports driven for a reason. I want us to know that we have some of the top talent here in Virginia Beach and Hampton Roads. And I think this is a good move with identifying who we are as a resort city. A part of our identity is sports tourism. It's a driver for taxes being low. How can we keep the taxes low except inviting traveling sports team here to stay in our hotels, eat at our restaurants? It's an identity that I think we are starting to classify very correctly. So I thank you for this resolution.
Could I ask a question? Yes. Is it just for what's currently,
Oh, no, well, of course,
are you expanding it to?
complete what we've always planned to be there. And so when you look at our ITA and comprehensive plan that is existing, there's parts of this that are not yet built. And so that's what, I think we need to do. And I know Stacy has been talking about the cross-country track. Track is something that we really need to have out there. And so, there are other sports things that need to be built in this area to complete what we've always planned.
Well, does this include the whole ITA?
No, it would be up to us to determine what it is, depending on when we do it.
Patrick.
So, Mr. Mayor, and members of the council, I just want to clarify, and then Mr. Harmeyer and Ms. Warren can clarify if I misspeak. Currently, right now, what's drafted is only the highlighted areas. Council can expand it at a later date should council wants to do that, but currently what's drafted right now, it'll apply to the highlighted areas. Is that accurate?
Yeah, so that's correct. So it's set forward the four main facilities in that area, and then in the resolution, it states that council may want to revisit this to expand it as council makes other decisions down the line. So this is a starting point for what facilities are there today.
Rosemary.
So I think it's a great idea to name that where the sportsplex is and the soccer fields and all of that. But until we know what's going to happen to the rest of that area, I'd really like to just kind of keep it concentrate on what is sports now, and then as we, just like when we did the town center, you know, that was able to expand as things went along. So
Okay.
that's what I would be interested in seeing.
Patrick?
So, Mr. Mayor, I think Vice Mayor, you said it more succinctly and concisely than anybody of us said. That's what this does right now. It's whatever is sports now is highlighted to be that sports district with a carve out that should council want to expand it at a later date, council can expand it at its in its consideration or as it
I have
desires.
no problem going forward with that. Okay. All right, anybody else at this time? Patrick?
We'll work to bring that on your agenda for the 17th, or you want? Or
Yeah, let's go ahead and put it on the 17th. Barbara, anything else?
Yes, I have been asking, I believe that we have a consultant on board that is looking at the ITA for review and expansion or some such, and I've been asking for a scope of that work. I'd like to get that, and what is the scope of the work that they're doing? What is their timeline? And I happened to see this article in one of the newspapers this week about Portsmouth planning their innovation district and how they're doing their work with citizen input. We see the citizens involved in the design. That's what I think we need to be doing now with the ITA. Don't bring it to the citizens after something's already been developed by the consultant. We need to have the citizens involved in the planning. That's the way we've always done it. And I hope that's what we will do with this plan that we are developing, because I see the ITA as the biggest opportunity area we've got in this city. When you look at it, look at our three primary industries: tourism, agriculture, and the military, and they're all very much involved in that area that, of course, started out as Transition Area 1. But with the BRAC, it became the interfacility traffic area, because this is what saved Oceana. And I think that's the big thing with anything we do in the ITA. We have to measure it by whether it's going to be okay with the Navy, not only now, but in the future as they need to change. So I think this ITA plan is something that is one of the most important things we've worked on, and it holds the future of a lot. And I would really like to know what the scope is of this work that is now underway and when the citizens are going to have a chance to have input.
Okay, Josh?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. And I first of all, I want to say that I support this. And I've got maybe a couple of questions about it, but I think it's a wonderful thing that, we help our partners there brand that area so that we can attract more people from out of town and to emphasize the role that and amenity that is for our residents. I want to just carefully say, if you don't mind, that the ITA plan, however, whatever that ends up being when we end up taking a look at, I have no doubt will be shopped around and talked about with the community. And I also, I recall the parks plan that was a request made in a reconciliation letter several years ago, which I think is a wonderful plan, has a lot of great amenities. I don't remember that plan before it was drafted on paper being shopped around community and talked about in spaces where you have input going into it. I just remember that being a request that was made of staff based upon the ITA plan that had been in long since in existence. But I mean, the point really that I'm trying to make, Mayor, is that in order for us to have input, meaningful input from people about any given thing, we got to show them what it is we're talking about first. And that's why I think it was, I think the Parks Plan was a wonderful piece of work, and I'm glad that you requested that work be done. But the point is that I guess I'm trying to make is that plan was drafted, and it wasn't done at the tail end of a lot of public input, and it garnered a lot of public input afterwards because there were a lot of boards and commissions and appointed agencies that weighed in, but that's because they had a piece of paper to look at, and that's the point. All I'm trying to make, and I think all of this is stuff that we do need to talk about, and we do need to make sure that's out in front of the public. But what I don't want the public to think is that we're putting pen to paper on plans, and there's no intention of ever going to talk to anybody about any of it, which is the furthest thing from the truth possible.
Well, this is the first meeting I've been to in months that I did not bring our ITA plans with me, but they were getting a little shop worn. They're about this big. The first one was done in 2010, and then we did an update in 2017, and that's what's in our comprehensive plan now. And both of those were, from day one, the public was involved, just like it's shown in this picture. And there are actually pictures in those plans showing the public participation. So when we did the first ITA plans, and I'll tell you what happened, and I was not on the council during the BRAC, but in 2005, when Oceana was going to be closed and everything was going to be shut down, and then the council, and I wasn't here to know exactly what was going on, but as a citizen, I followed it. The council came up with the plan of that area being the ITA. I mean, that's what it is, the interfacility traffic area, the traffic area between the two facilities, Oceana and Fentress. And the thing that saved Oceana, I believe, was the agreement that the city had that there would be very careful use of that property. There would be no residential. There would be nobody sleeping in those areas, no use that would allow somebody to sleep overnight, because Oceana was pretty daggone tired of all the complaints they were getting from the people with the noise. And so the ITA was born to save Oceana. And when I came back on the council in whatever it was, 2007 or 8, the people out there were saying, well, what can I do with my property? I can't put what everybody else was going to put, residential and so forth. What can I put on my property? So that's when we did the first ITA plan that came out in 2010. It was intended to tell these people what they can put on their property. And then one of the things that the city was required to do as a part of the BRAC was to purchase up to $15 million worth of property every year. They started out in the accident potential zone, but later they said, okay, you can also purchase some of that $15 million property in the ITA because of the high noise. And so that's when the city purchased, 2,000 acres in the ITA to satisfy Oceana. And so that's why we've got the ITA primarily, was to save Oceana and to protect the area from all the complaints that they were getting. And so that's why when we're looking at the ITA, we really have to look at why do we own all that property? Why did we purchase it? And what is expected of us now? And so I think the first measure of anything that goes in the ITA is, what does the Navy think about it? And then we go to the other issues as well. But those first two ITA plans were done very much with the citizens participating because they wanted to know what they could do with their property. And I'll share those with you anytime. They're great plans. And so now as we are amending those plans, what is it about those plans that we need to change? I think that's what we're looking at now. And that's why I'm asking to see what the scope of this study is that's underway now. How is it going to change things? We certainly can't shake up Oceana or the Navy.
Dave, let me comment on that. You know, back in 2005, I was part of a little design team that put together the plan that did save Oceana. And that, as a matter of fact, is now regarded throughout the country as the gold standard of how the municipality interacts with an adjacent aircraft field. And I can tell you that there was nothing that we have done in the ITA, whether it be a building project, a housing project, where the Navy was not on board. At a recent controversial.
I'm not sure how to help
vote
with
not too
that.
Long ago, people were up there, well, we're gonna get put back on the blacklist, but the problem is, we had a letter from Captain Genetti making a request that we do that, because housing is a critical factor for military readiness in terms of recruitment, retention, but also having people living close to the base. Housing is, and daycare are two of the, especially Navy, but all the armed forces need. And be assured, any project that we go, that even when it is in concept, it is run up the flagpole with the Navy. So be assured that whatever we do in the ITA, we'll have the blessing of the Navy. Okay? All right, anybody else at this point? All right, at this point, the chair will entertain a motion to access, to recess into a closed session pursuant to the exemptions for open meeting allowed by section 2.23711A Code of Virginia as amended for the following purposes. Publicly held property, discussion or consideration of acquisition of real property for public purpose or of disposition of publicly held property. Clear discussion in an open meeting would adversely affect the bargaining position or negotiating strategy of the public body pursuant to section 2.23711A3, and that would be District 6. Public contract, discussions or award of public contract involving the expenditure of public funds and discussions of the terms and scope for such contract, where discussion in an open session would adversely affect the bargaining position or negotiating strategy of the public body pursuant to section 2.23711A29, and that's Project RAMP. And then personnel matters, discussions, considerations, or interviews of prospective candidates for employment, assignment, appointment, promotion, performance, demotion, salaries, disciplining, or resignation of specific public officers, appointees, and employees of any public body pursuant to section 2.23711A1, and that's council boards, commissions, committees, authorities, agencies, and appointees. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Second?
Okay, roll call, please.
Councilmember Berlucci.
Aye.
Councilmember Cummings.
Aye.
Councilmember Henley.
Aye.
Councilmember Hutchinson.
Aye.
Councilmember Jackson Green.
Aye.
Councilmember Remick. Councilmember Ross Hammond.
Aye.
Councilmember Shulman.
Aye.
Vice Mayor Wilson.
Aye.
Mayor Dyer.
Aye.
By a vote of 10-0, you've certified closed session.
Okay, we are recessed into closed. Certify the closed session.
Second.
Okay, call the roll.
Councilmember Berlucci.
Yes.
Councilmember Cummings.
Aye.
Councilmember Henley.
Aye.
Councilmember Hutchinson.
Aye.
Councilmember Jackson Green.
Aye.
Councilmember Remick. Councilmember Ross Hammond.
Aye.
Councilmember Rouse. Councilmember Shulman.
Aye.
Vice Mayor Wilson. Mayor Dyer.
Aye.
By a vote of 10-0, you certified the closed session.
Thank you. We're adjourned. Thank you.